Discovering Asian dramas back in 2018 was an enlightening moment for me, and I've never looked back. I enjoy talking about them just as much as watching them, so much so that I decided to create a podcast with a heavier focus on Chinese dramas but passing through Korean, Japanese, Thai and Filipino dramas. Welcome to the Tea and Soju Asian Drama Podcast, your corner for drama talking. For more tea and soju content, consider joining Patreon, where I release extra reviews and polls. Everything is linked in the episode description. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Tea and Soju Asian Drama Podcast. I'm your host Liliana, and today I am very excited because I am going to do a review episode for the Chinese drama Hidden Love. Now, if you follow me on the socials, you know that I've been a little bit obsessed with this drama lately, and I don't seem to be the only one. I think it's become a fan favourite, rightfully so in my humble opinion, but I'm very excited. I have lots of notes and I am just excited to get into it. Also a little sad because once I'm done recording this episode, that's kind of it. The drama is then like done, if that makes sense, because if I'm really enjoying a drama and then I'm going to be recording for it, I tend to, be taking notes and whatnot. And it feels like when I then sit down and record and, press release the episode sort of thing, it kind of feels like the final thing for that drama. And then I feel a little bit sad because I finished the drama, I think 2 days ago. So my thoughts are very fresh on it. But it also means that I've been kind of like in a slump for the last 2 days and not really been able to watch much of anything else. Which, a drama has hit you when you kind of are, put into this slump afterwards. So that's where I am right now. I'm hoping I'm not the only one. I think I'm not. I think there's quite a few of us out there who are also in this, slump of sorts. But hopefully, as July goes on, it is July, isn't it? It is, yeah, it is July. I've lost, the ability to tell the time at this point. The months kind of just rumble into each other, if that makes sense. But yeah, so hopefully as July wears on, we'll get really good ones. I think there's been kind of a couple of dramas mentioned, but we just never know what's going to hit us. There's definitely a few I'm keeping my eye on, so we shall see where we end up. Back to today's, topic of Hidden Love, the drama. So just before I go into the review itself, my review episodes tend to work out. So in the first sort of half of the episode, I'll kind of run through the synopsis, cast, general notes on the drama, tidbits like that. And then I will just give my very general opinions on it without giving any spoilers. And then from the second half onwards, I do always give you a warning or a heads up. I will be talking about very specific details of the drama, which will definitely be spoiler heavy. But I will give you a heads up once we get into that part of the episode. I'm predicting that this episode will be long, and I'm predicting that I will be releasing it in 2 parts. I don't know. We shall see how I contain myself, but I do have a lot of notes. And there's a lot to talk about. But also, I have very kindly 2 guests over on Twitter. I've been following their, tweets and things about Hidden Love, and I've loved their talk about it. And I reached out and asked them to do a little note for me, like a little voice clip that I will attach at the end of the episode, so you can hear from somebody else, about what they've thought about the drama. Now, if I split this into 2, I will put 1 at the end of each episode. If I keep it as 1, I'm just going to keep this in. You guys are following along with my thought process as I'm doing this. But yeah, so there will be some voice recordings from other guests on the episode as well. And I think that's it for the intro. Just general things. If you would like to support the podcast, please do comment, share, follow, all of those things. Those really help other people find the podcast. And if you want to find a drama community to talk dramas with, we do now have the Discord server. That is linked in the description notes. And the exciting thing is I have reached out to some of my fellow content creators. So podcasts like Dayback and Afternooner Delight and, No Sleep for Dramas. Lots of podcasts like that and blogs and Asian content creators, and I have reached out and kind of asked them if they'd like to join in on the Discord server, and they have. So it is all, as well as it being a community of fans, it's also like a little community of Asian drama content creators that, we get to connect with you guys directly. So if you want to join, the link is in the description box below, and it's really simple. Like, Discord is pretty simple to get used to using in general, and if you have any questions, I'm always more than happy to help. It is like, I just want it to be a nice little safe space where we can just chat Asian dramas. That's like literally all it is. So yeah, link is available there if you guys want to check it out. And then, just a regular Patreon is also available there. I release extra content for that. So if you enjoy Tea and Soju and would like to support even further, Patreon is also available for you guys to check out. All the socials. I also, guys, right, so I have been having ideas. I had them for Till the End of the Moon, but I was like, I have no capability of doing this. But I've had ideas for edits, video edits for Hidden Love. So I've actually released quite a few over on TikTok. I've opened up a little TikTok where I'm still learning, but I've got a few edits over there of Hidden Love, because apparently this drama got my creative juices going, and I had so many ideas, and every time I heard a song I was like, oh my god, this would be perfect for a Hidden Love edit. So there we go. That's also all linked in the description, and that is it. We're out of the way. So let's dive into this and let's see if we're going to be ending up with one part or two parts. My vote is on 2 parts because I feel like this is going to be a long one. So buckle up and let's chat Hidden Love. So synopsis. I took this from Drama Wiki, and it says Sang-ji falls in love with Dwan Jiashu, a boy who often comes to her house to play games in her older brother's room. He is 7 years older than her. Sang-ji had a crush on Dwan Jiashu when she was young, but they lost contact with each other for some reason. After she graduates, she joins the university in the city he is in, and during their day-to-day intimate and close interaction, they slowly fall in love. This drama is adapted from the novel, Secretly, but Unable to Hide It by Zhu Yi. Now, I am a little, I don't know, right, so in the drama, they sometimes mention that there is a 5-year gap between them, between the male lead and the female lead. But then at one point, they mentioned she's 19 and he's going to turn 26, which would make them 6 years apart and not 5. But then, this description says 7 years apart. So I am a little bit lost. So they are anything between 5 to 7 years apart. Let's put it that way. So yeah, that is the description. I think that sums it up pretty well. Although there is a couple of caveats, but we'll get into that in just a second. Let me just go through the rest of these things. So this was directed by Lee Chong-rong, and she is actually a female, and she is a Taiwanese director. Now, you will see a theme very quickly. The original novel is by a female author. This is also directed by a female, and the screenwriter is also a female. This is a female work, and it is aimed for females. Like, it is, you will very quickly realize that this is written by females and it is like handed to females, if that makes sense. It is catered to us to a T, I feel. So I would have been very, very shocked if this had been written by a male, just because I feel like it's so I don't know, there's just things in it that indicate and scream it's written by a female. So, but it is a wonder team. It is all female director and screenwriter. So I'm always very excited about that. So the screenwriter, now I'm a little confused on the screenwriter, and if you guys know, please let me know, because I was looking on my drama list, and my drama list has the screenwriter for this down as Shen Fei Xian, who wrote Love 020 and My Sunshine. However, I was looking on other things like Drama Wiki and a couple of other sites, and they actually have the screenwriter down as Or Si Jia, who wrote Mirror, A Tale of Twin Cities, and apparently also wrote Love 020. But, which kind of got me thinking, maybe they're the same person, but different names. But it doesn't seem like it, because then when I go and look at Shen Fei Xian over on my drama list, she doesn't have a Mirror, A Tale of Twin Cities down for her. So I'm a little confused. Everywhere else I looked, it said it was screenwritten by O Si Jia. So I'm leaning towards it being her being the screenwriter as opposed to Shen Fei Xian, who I only saw mentioned in my drama list. So I don't know kind of like what's happened there. If you guys know for sure, please let me know, because I would be really, really interested to figure out who is who. So, for cast, we've got Zhao Lushi, who she also goes by Rosie Zhao, and she plays Sangzi, and she has starred in dramas like The Romance of Tiger and Rose, which I absolutely love. It's one of my favourite roles from her. And then also dramas like Who Rules the World, and I think her best role up to date would be Love Like the Galaxy. Huge hit last year, and I really enjoyed her character in it. It was kind of different to anything I had seen her portray before. So yeah, that is, Love Like the Galaxy. So the male lead is Chen Ziyun, Yuan, and he plays Duan Jiashu, and he has been in dramas like Mr. Bad and Our Secret. I absolutely loved Our Secret, although I will say, other dramas of his, he doesn't smile half as much as he does in this, and that is criminal. Criminal. Like, we need to sort that out. Like, going forward, please let him smile a bit more in his dramas, because damn it, his smile is good. So yeah, that is the male lead. And then this drama was filmed from August 2022 till November 2022. So not too bad of a turnaround. Less than a year for it to go from finishing filming to then being on our screens. So not too bad at all. Now, let's get into this. I'm not going to do any spoilers right now. I'm just going to do general thoughts. For me personally, this drama is just like such a beautiful rendition of like first love. And a lot of the time you're looking at our female lead, and the feelings she's feeling is something that pretty much every girl, man, whatever, every person out there in general can kind of relate to. It's those feelings of falling in love for the first time. And, she's giddy sometimes, and that makes you giddy. But then when she's broken or, sad, you can relate to all of those feelings at some point in your life. Or at least I think everyone can sort of relate in a way. And I think that makes this drama really, really special, is the fact that you can, relate so much to the character. I just feel like, it's beautifully done. Now, let's get into the elephant in the room, because I would be remiss to not mention this. There is definitely an age gap. And when our male lead and our female lead meet, she is, I think, either 14 when they first meet. Now, for me personally, it was done well enough that I was okay with them meeting. And the fact is, at that point in time, she has a crush on him. He is like her older brother's friend, and she definitely has a crush on him. For me personally, like, the actions that I saw were the actions of, a big brother kind of like looking out for, his friend's little sister. So I didn't mind that at all. But I will say, there will be some people who will kind of like look at that and that's not their cup of tea at all. But if that's the case, then don't go near the drama. Like, that's cool. Each to their own. To me personally, I was kind of like thinking it was handled okay enough for me to be okay with it. I mentioned this, and I'm going to mention this here and probably get a bunch of hate, but I mentioned this in a conversation I was having with somebody about this drama. And I kind of said, do you know what? I don't mind this one as much, but I actually minded more, the Korean drama last year, 25-21. Was it the last year or this year? Oh, I can't remember. Anyways, 25-21, and he was a fully fledged grown adult, and he was very much like acting as a romantic partner towards her, and she was still in high school. So I had a problem with that one, right? Because to me, that was a little bit too far on the edge. For this one, I honestly think like the male lead is the older one, and he kind of like just treats her as a little sister, and I feel like that was fine. And then before they kind of like move into any sort of flirting or anything like that, she's fully grown. She's 19 years old at university, away from home. She's kind of like established herself a little bit more, but also they've not talked for about 2 years at that point. They've not met each other. They've not talked, nothing. So they've had kind of like that space away from each other to kind of like, then when they meet back up, it's kind of like it's, a new stage. So I thought personally that it was handled really, really well. But I have to put that caveat in this episode because I know that's not going to be for everybody's taste. And that's totally cool. Like, I mean, we all have our, tastes and our personal preferences, and that's fine. But if you do want to try it out and you think, oh, I don't really want to watch all the kiddie stuff, like, personally, I feel like that's a bit of a disservice to the drama, but it's episode 8 where she jumps from being in high school to then they do a time jump, and she's then at university, and that's when they meet back up again at that point. So if you do want to still check it out, but don't necessarily want to watch the high school stuff, then jump to episode 8. But I would highly suggest you try the other episodes. And there's a lot of chatter out there about, oh, I didn't think it was right. Oh, the male lead is too old, like, for the story. There's a lot of chatter out there. Personally, like, my personal opinion is I would always say, don't listen to anybody, not even me. Check the drama out. See if you like it. If you don't, cool. Move on. You've tried it. You don't like it. That's cool. If you do think, you enjoy it, then great. You've got a new drama to check out. So that's always what I say. Like, it's cool to listen to other people's opinions and what they think about dramas, says she as she's sitting down to do a full-ass review on this. But you know what I mean. It's like, it's cool to check it out, but just because somebody likes it or doesn't like it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't like it. So that was always, my 2 cents on it. Check it out and see if it's up to you. I just want to put that caveat in there that there's a definite age difference between them. And like I said, I didn't mind too much. And one of the things that I said, and it was a tweet that I tweeted out, and I said, apparently it blew up. I was not expecting that tweet to do so well. But I was saying, like, how I thought the drama handled First Love so well and everything. And to the age gap, what I said was, like, 5 years difference in your teens, it is not the same as 5 years in your, 20s or 5 years in your 30s. As you grow older, yes, that age gap is still 5 years, but it feels like a lot less, if that makes sense. So when they first meet, that age gap is a definite thing and you cannot cross that line, and they don't. Like, she has a crush on him, but he definitely that's his little sister sort of thing. But when they meet back up and she's, heading into her 20s and he's already in his 20s, it's like, that's a different age gap, if that makes sense. So that's, I think I've harpooned on about enough about this. But yeah, there was a lot of discussion online while the drama was airing, especially those episodes. The only thing I will say, right, so when she's 14, they kind of have a different actress, a younger actress, playing Sang-ji. And that's the only thing I wasn't as keen on. I wish they'd just stick to Zhao Lushi as like the 14-year-old and then the 17-year-old and then the 19-year-old again. But, it is what it is. I feel like the actress that they chose to play the 14-year-old was really young. She looks very young. And that kind of like makes that that gap even more pronounced, and it makes you feel maybe that's not quite right, if that makes sense. But then like the male lead's actions, definitely like never romantic actions. They were definitely like, to me personally, they were actions as of a friend of the brother of the sister. I have two older brothers. I grew up surrounded by their friends and whatnot, so I feel like the actions that I saw was actions that my brother's friends would have had towards me in terms of helping me out if I needed it and that sort of thing. So that's all, we'll leave it there. I rambled on way longer than I thought I was going to. But yeah, so other things that I really enjoyed. It's the fact that this drama, at its core, the story itself is very simple. Like, the storyline, there's not a lot of faff to it, not a lot of embellishments. It relies on our two main leads having wicked chemistry, which, newsflash, they do. My God, these two really do have really, really great chemistry. But it also rides on the writing itself. There's these conversations that are had throughout the drama that, they just, I don't know how to explain it even, but you can almost like feel what the characters are saying. And I almost said people because it is, at the end of the day, you almost could see these characters in real life. And I feel like that's what translates so well about this drama. So yeah, I feel like throughout my notes, this is one of the dramas that I have got more quotes than ever before. Like, I have so many quotes on this drama, it's a little bit crazy. Just because there's so many lines that I enjoyed a lot. From our male lead, from the female lead, from the parents, from the brother. There's just like lines that are really, really good. So yeah, I loved it. I loved this drama thoroughly, and it was like my very happy place for however long it was airing. I think it was airing for 3 weeks. So it was the drama that I ran to every time. And also, there is something to say about this. So if you're watching a drama and you're watching it with everybody else at the same time, there's kind of like this frenzy. And I've mentioned this before, but this is why I live for on-air dramas, because there's something magical that happens, that there's, this almost, I don't know, this energy that everybody's chatting about the drama, whether it be good or bad or whatever, or, you're just interacting with people and you find new people, whether it be social media, whatever it may be. And, it just all adds into the experience of watching that drama. So if you end up meeting a lot of people or, speaking to a lot of people while the drama is airing, I feel like those feelings kind of get embedded into your experience of watching that drama. So you kind of remember it with a lot more fondness than whether you were just watching it by yourself, if that makes sense. So I feel like a lot of my top dramas I watched while on air, and I, had this experience with them of everybody kind of watching along and waiting for episodes and, talking about things that were happening in the drama. And I feel that really does add to the experience. And that's why I love, like, on-air dramas so much, but this one particularly, I feel like it came exactly at the right time. I was in the right mood for something very simple, and at its core, the story is simple, but it is the writing and the acting that make this truly a great drama for me. So yeah, I feel like that's pretty much all the general thoughts I can sort of get out there without spoiling too much. So, heads up, if you haven't watched the drama, I am now moving into the spoiler section. There will be spoilers ahead. I will be talking about specific episodes, probably almost episode by episode, because I have notes like that on every single episode. But I'm going to go through episodes and basically like my favorite scenes and what I enjoyed about them, and kind of like paint a picture of what makes this drama so special, at least to me. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that this drama has become very, very special to. One thing I will say, but just before I move on into spoilers, this drama was so comforting to watch, and I feel like it has become one of my, if not my go-to comfort watches, is this one, because it's so easy. There's not a lot of drama itself. Communication is actually really good in this drama. There's not a lot of misunderstandings, and when there is, they are resolved very quickly through conversation. So I feel like it's so comforting. It's pretty close to like life itself. So yeah, that is, the last thing I will say. It is a top-notch comforting drama. So if you haven't watched Hidden Love, what are you doing? Go check it out. But if you haven't watched it, and if you don't want any spoilers, go watch it and then come back and listen to the rest of my thoughts. But you have thoroughly been warned. I'm moving on into spoiler territory now. So, episodes 1 to 7, like I said, is basically the episodes where we kind of see the female lead when she's 14 and then when she's 17 with the male lead, and it's her crush. And like I was saying, a lot of the time you can just like relate to the female lead so much throughout this episode, because who the heck hasn't had a crush on an older boy? Or an older girl? Whichever. We don't discriminate over in this podcast. Whichever. If like an older person, let's put it that way. I think at some point we've all kind of had that crush on somebody that maybe we shouldn't, or, that's a little bit old. And at that stage in life, like 14, 15, 16, 17, you're so young still. And I feel like everything's so new. Like, we don't know what we're feeling. We have nothing to compare it to at that point in life. And I feel like this drama does this so well, because it kind of ends up like pulling on the audience's experiences almost, because regardless of what experience you've had, you can relate to those feelings. And I feel like that's very, very, what happens throughout. Like, there's a scene where he kind of like gives her milk, and she takes the bottle and like keeps the bottle. She's allergic to milk. He does not know this at this point. But she takes the bottle and kind of like cleans it up, dumps the milk, and like keeps the bottle, and he gives her like a soft toy, and she keeps them all, and it's kind of like her treasures. And at that point, right, we as, 15, 16, 14-year-olds, wherever it may be, we don't have anything to compare it to. And we kind of don't know that those actions are very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very innocent actions. But to us, it's almost like, oh my God, does he like me? Does he not like me? That sort of thing. And I feel like I do like that she never quite kids herself into thinking that he does like her, which is kind of good, because I feel like if she had, maybe that could have gone a little bit south in a sense. So I really enjoyed how that was handled throughout, episode 1 through 7. I thought it was done really, really well. And then obviously, she kind of like there's this scene where he has finished university, and this is when she's 17 now. And this is kind of like the break that they have. And it's because, so her brother tells her that, so he's moved to Yeehaw, which is, I think, his hometown. and he's working over there. And they've thought, so throughout episodes 1 to 7, they've kind of thought, her family have kind of thought that she's had this crush on this online crush who, she's sort of chasing after. They obviously don't know that it's Xiaxue who she's crushing on, and she definitely wants to keep it that way. So what happens is she hears from her brother that they think Xiaxue has gotten a girlfriend, and basically she flies out to him, and they think she's meant to be flying out to meet her crush, and they kind of like get very, very mad and tell her to come back, and Xiaxue kind of meets her at the airport, and he comes in with like one of his seniors, but she doesn't know at that point that that's his senior from work, so she assumes that's his girlfriend. And oh my god, guys, so this is the first time that Sangzi experiences like heartbreak, and oh my god, like you know that that's never going to work out at that time and place anyways, but oh my god, you feel the heartbreak right there with her, and it's so sad. Like, she's heartbroken. It's her very first love and her very first heartbreak, and I feel like everyone who was watching that episode was like crying with her, or they could relate to that experience of having your heart broken. And I feel like, again, that is such a good thing that this drama does, is make you relate to the emotions of the character, especially the emotions of our female lead. So I thought that scene was so bittersweet, but it needed to happen because she kind of like needed to grow away from Duan Xiaxue, like from the male lead, to kind of like become her own person. And when they do meet back up, they're kind of like on a more even playing field, if that makes sense. Yes, he is still working and whatnot, but I feel like she's more... So I feel like actually our female lead is more mature in terms of like feelings and that sort of thing, way more mature and attuned to that than our male lead, and that kind of like evens out the playing field between them a little bit. So yeah, that is like episodes 1 through 7. There's lots of little moments like that, but that heartbreak scene, that really is heartbreaking to watch. And we all felt so bad for poor Sangzi. Like, we all felt at that point our hearts were breaking a little bit with her as well. So yeah, episode 8 is when all of this really does go down, and it's like at the end of like the crush phase, and it's moving on to the next stage. And episode 8 is when we see her go to... Oh my goodness, I'm having a blank mind. University, that's the word I was trying to say. We see her go to university, and then she kind of like meets Xiaxue back up again, and I find it very, very funny the way they do. She kind of like is out with friends at a karaoke bar, and she kind of like walks out of the bar, and even then... And like she's just going for some air, get a call, but she picks up the wrong jacket and it has cigarettes in that jacket, and she comes out and Xiaxue is just sitting there, and they kind of like look at each other as if to say, what are you doing here? Like, what are you doing here? And she realizes that the cigarettes have fallen out, and he has a very brotherly response at that time, and he goes, are those yours? And it's like, it's kind of funny. The way that he just sort of like goes into brother mode at that point. At that point, he still very much like, I think, sees her as, his best friend's sister. So at that point, I feel like even that relationship there is still very much that. And it starts to shift, I think, from episode like 10, 9, 10 and 11, we really start to see like the change and the shift in our male lead. Like, he starts seeing her as like an adult and not necessarily the kid that he kind of grew up with. So he definitely sees her as like someone who cares for him, and that's something that he hasn't had in a long time. So his mum has passed away, and he kind of like has a dark history in the sense of so his dad was involved in a drunk hit and run. He was the one doing the hitting, and he didn't want to say anything to the police, but like his mum and our male lead definitely did. And amongst this havoc, his dad kind of like jumps out of the window and then goes into a coma. Now, the other driver unfortunately passes, and they have a lot of debt to pay and whatnot. So Xiaxu and his mum are kind of like stuck with this debt, and also like keeping his father's hospital bills going and all of that. So he has all of that to deal with. But one thing that I really, really love is the fact that even though he has that going on, he has become this very responsible adult. And yes, he may not necessarily know like what love really, really is, because he hasn't had it in a long time. And he may not necessarily know what being taken care of is. He does know like responsibility at that point, and I really enjoyed that about his character. And it's the way that he kind of like slowly changes, but he accepts that change readily. Like he's not necessarily feeling bad, or he's not necessarily like pulling away because of his sad past. And I really appreciated that, because so many times in a romance drama, like the male lead has a sad past, and then that like he keeps pulling away from the female lead because of that sad past. And I didn't really necessarily want that to be the case here, and it wasn't. So I was really, really glad for that. In these, so episode 10, 9, 10 and 11. Now, I did not write down which episode it was, but obviously, so Duan Xiaxu gets sick, and she kind of like takes care of him, and she accompanies him at the hospital and like cleans his face and does things like that. And it's something that Xiaxu hasn't had, like he hasn't had that care from anyone in a very long time. And I think that's when the switch starts to change slightly. But I will say, I think for definite change is, so I believe this is after the hospital scene, and it is one of my favorite scenes in the whole drama. It truly is. It's such a beautiful scene. And basically, I think it is after the hospital scene, and they kind of like come out of the hospital, and they're kind of walking along, and they're having a conversation, and it starts to snow, and it is the first snow of the year. Now, if you guys have been watching Asian dramas in general for a long time, you know that if you want to spend the first snow with someone you love, it's supposed to like strengthen your relationship and that sort of thing. So they are there together, and Sang-Zhi, I'm trying to get this pronunciation right. I will, by the end of the episode, I will be pronouncing these names right. Sang-Zhi, basically, she is kind of like carefree and smiling and like spinning around in this like first snow. And you see the shift in our male lead's face. Like you see the slight shift. Like it's the way he smiles. You see the shift of, that's not someone looking at the best friend's sister. That is someone looking at someone that he likes, or that he is, starting to catch feelings for. And I absolutely love Chen Zuyan for doing this. Throughout the drama, there's these like slight changes in his acting that, especially when we're going from the stage of him seeing her as, his best friend's sister, to somebody who he wants to pursue and somebody who he is interested in, like there's these slight changes in him. And there's obviously like bigger changes that are very obvious, like he becomes jealous at one point. So those are very obvious things, but there's also, even before we get to like those stages, there's just like slightly different stages in his expression. And I loved it. I think he did such a great job. And this scene right here is just bliss, because it's just like the snow is falling. It's shot really, really beautifully. And they're not even saying anything. They're just kind of like, she's just being carefree and enjoying the first snow. And he's just like enjoying watching her like enjoy the snow, if that makes sense. So I absolutely love this scene. It's such a beautiful scene, and it's one of the standout scenes for me. We also get to listen. So it's quite funny because right at the end, it's one of the last lines that Duan Jiashu says to Sang-zi, is that basically that's when he first fell in love with her, is like watching her in the first snow. And you can tell when he says that line, like in episode 25, you, the audience, can like associate that scene and be like, yeah, we can, that's obvious, because you can tell there was definitely a major shift in him when he sees that. So yeah, that is one of the scenes that I had to mention from that, those episodes. I can't remember which episode it is, because I will say, so for the first like 11 episodes, I was watching this and really, really, really enjoying it. And I kept thinking, oh, maybe I should start taking some notes to do a full review episode. But I was like, no, I'll just keep it. It's fine. I'll just keep it that way. But then by episode 12, I was like, no, I have to start taking notes because there's so much goodness. So from episode 12 onwards, I have a bunch more notes, and they are a lot more detailed than my notes for up to episode 11. So we shall see. We're moving on to episode 12, and my notes start to get a lot better now. So like I said, episode 12 is the episode that I feel like we see the more definite changes in our male lead towards our female lead. Like up to this point, we've been seeing slight changes within like his expression and whatnot, but now there's like a clear shift, and there's like, you start to see our male lead kind of like tease her or flirt a little bit or smirk a little bit, and it's things that you wouldn't do to someone that you're not interested in. So this man has game, I tell you, because this character, and I find it hilarious because there's one scene at one point that he's like, oh, but I don't know how to flirt. And I'm like, shut up. Yes, you do. You've been like charming the pants off a whole audience by this point. And that scene is kind of like hilarious at the same time. But back to episode 12, there is, so a female lead goes out with friends to the bar. She has a little bit too much to drink, because at this point she's feeling a little confused. She's like, no, but I put this crush away, but deep down, she knows that those feelings never went away. Like, she shelved them, tabled them, put them aside, but they never kind of went away. So she's kind of like confused. And at this point, she's, second guessing everything that he's doing. And she's kind of like thinking, does he like me? Does he not like me? And again, it's one of those points where we've all been through this. Like, it's so damn obvious. We've all had this part to play where we've kind of gone through, does he like me? Does he not like me? Was that action meant for someone that he likes? Was that, you kind of like start to second guess every action and start to second guess everything that you're seeing. And it's so like so relatable, and I keep saying this and I'll probably say it a couple more times about this drama. This drama is so blooming relatable that, you know, I just really enjoy watching it for that reason. So yeah, he kind of like, so she's had a little bit too much to drink and he's like, okay, I'll go pick you up, because I think they were meant to have dinner or something. And obviously we have a second male lead, and even then actually I felt like the second male lead was dealt with fairly well. Sang-soo, like, she did a really good job at making it clear that she does not like him. But like he pursues, what's the word I'm trying to say? He chases after her? That's not the word I was going for, but I cannot say the other word, so we're going with it. And he kind of like chases after her a little bit longer, and this is the moment where she's kind of like sitting on the floor and she doesn't know whether she's going to be sick or not at this point. And the second male lead is kind of like trying to look after her and like he's just had this moment where he sang this very romantic song for her, and she couldn't care she couldn't care less, because one, she's had a little bit to drink, and two, our male lead is coming to pick her up. So she's so out of it by this point, and she kind of like walks out to go get some air. And she tells her friends, oh, it's okay, you know. She's like, are you sure you're going to be okay? And she's like, yeah, it's fine. He's picking me up. It's fine. Again, like, her friends, brilliant friends. Like, she's like, you know, they clearly see that she's had a little bit too much to drink, but they're like, okay, if you're getting picked up, then that's fine. We'll leave you to it. And Dwan Jiashu, he kind of like walks in and he sees that the second male lead is kind of like trying to pick her up or whatever. And he clearly walks over to her and like stakes his claim almost, and he's like, what are you doing, sort of thing. And I love this scene because I feel like this is the first time where he's acting like an interested person around other people, as opposed to someone that, you know, is like the big brother or whatever it may be. So, really enjoyed this scene. And the next scene that comes up is the scene where he gives her a piggyback ride and she's drunk and, you know, she says a lot. And I love the whole conversation that they have. But she says, I have a secret. I like someone. And he says to her, and you can't tell even me who it is? And she goes, no, I can't. And you just feel like, because he's the person she likes, and it's really funny, because not funny, but it's kind of like touching, because I think episode 23, she kind of like reveals to him that she's had a crush on him for a very long time, and everything, especially like things like this piggyback ride and this conversation, kind of slot into place for our male lead, and it's kind of like such a beautiful moment at that point where he kind of realizes that all this time she's been talking about him, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And also, this leads to a hilarious scene where she's kind of like saying, you know, something about, like he says he'll give her a piggyback ride or whatever it may be. And she's like, no, but I'm too heavy. And it's like, this is the ridiculous line in every Asian drama, because these actresses are tiny as heck. But, and she goes, why can't, but not my front is flat. Oh my God, she did not just say that. And he's just like trying to not laugh at her. And she's like, don't laugh at me. And it's just like one of those scenes where, you know, you are kind of cringing a little bit with our female lead, but also laughing a little bit at the same time. So yeah, that's definitely one of those, that I quite enjoyed. And then we have the famous car scene, and this is the moment where we know everything's about to change, because so she's fallen asleep, like he's given her a piggyback back to his car, and she's kind of like fallen asleep, and at this point, the audience have been seeing these very subtle changes in our male lead, but our male lead, he hasn't quite realized what it is. He hasn't tweaked that he likes her. Like, he knows there's something different, but he hasn't tweaked until this moment. And it's kind of like, so he's just talking to her. She's asleep, and he's just kind of like talking to her. And he reaches out to almost like, touch her, but he doesn't. He pulls away, and he kind of like snaps himself out of it, and he's like, what was I just doing? And it's a really, really well done scene, because obviously she's asleep, and they've just had this conversation about like what what she wants from what she's looking for in a guy. And he says so this is a quote from our male lead from episode 12 in the car scene. And he goes, letting someone else take care of you doesn't put me at ease at all. My situation has improved. I've paid off all my debts. I have a good personality. I'm just a little bit older than you. And he goes, Sangzi, Sangzi is grown up now. And he's like, it's the almost, it's all of these feelings that he's realizing in that moment that he cares for her and he likes her as a man loves a woman loves a woman. You know what I mean? We don't judge here, but I'm sounding like a broken record at this point, but you guys know what I mean when I say this. Love is love. Like, he loves her. Not as a sister, but he's in love with her. That's what I'm trying to get at. So yeah, this scene is so beautiful. And it's like I was saying, the way he almost brushes her, but brushes his face, but he kind of like pulls back and he's like denying himself that touch. But I also thought it was so good of him to do so, because a lot of the times we as an audience harp on about the female lead or male lead is asleep and there's a kiss and there's a touch or something like that, and it's at that point they're not in a relationship, they're not at all. He has no permission to touch her. So I feel like not only is he almost like denying himself, but in a way he's kind of like respecting her, and like, he doesn't have permission to do that, so he doesn't. And I feel like it was such a small thing, but it's also such a big thing in, again, this is one of those moments where you truly realize that this was written by women for women, because the male lead is so damn respectful of the female lead. Like, constantly he's aware of, her feelings and aware of who she is, what she is, whatever it may be. So I really enjoy that. The male in this episode, I also think like the second male lead kind of like, again, tries to express himself to her, and she's very clearly denying, like, I don't feel about you that way. So I really enjoy that, because there's no triangle in this drama. Absolutely no triangle. And I really adore that, because if it was to get into a triangle, I feel like we could be getting into, a lot more problematic. I feel like it would have dragged the drama down a little bit, honestly. So I'm really glad they didn't go. So I've just realized I'm almost up to an hour of recording, and I'm only on episode 13. So I guess we're breaking this up into 2 episodes. I will talk about episode 13, and then we will record, I will do a second part from episode 14 up to episode 25, and like my final thoughts, ratings, and all of that. So there you go, guys. I'm taking you along on this process with me, and as I'm making decisions on the fly. This is how I record all the time. Like, I just decide as I go. So, episode 13. First of all, let me squeal with you guys about the damn strawberry scene. And oh my gosh, I should have said this earlier, because if you guys have watched the episode, if you watched, they kind of like have these stills, and it makes you think it's the end of the episode, and it isn't. They have like post-credit scenes, and these scenes are really good, and there's no warning. So a lot of us were missing these like post-credit scenes, and I didn't know they were there, because I just have like my Yoku like to skip the beginning and the end credits. So I didn't even know these were there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've been missing out. And this episode was I went back and watched like all those little clips, especially because for this one, it's the damn strawberry scene. I mean, I feel like Chen Zuyan is now the spokespeople person for strawberries in general. If you know what I'm talking about. It's like they're driving in the car and they're coming back from the wedding. I have other things to talk about before this, but I'm just, we're here now. We're at the strawberry scene. And they're coming back from the wedding, and she was trying to get strawberries at the wedding, but somebody took them. So basically, he like stops at a convenience store, buys strawberries for her, and they keep on driving. And he basically, right, oh my God, episode 13 is so full of flirty male lead that I was living for it. I was like a giddy. I was like just loving it. But basically, he kind of like takes, she's like, oh, do you want a strawberry? And he's like, yeah, I'll have one. So he's like, oh, you're going to have to feed me because, I'm driving. So she reaches out and she thinks he's just going to take the strawberry. No. He reaches down with his mouth and grabs the strawberry from her hand and kind of like caresses his lips to her hand. And she's like, has no idea what to do. She's like, oh my God, what is happening? And it is such a cute but also hot scene at the same time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck did I just happen? And Twitter blew because everybody was like, oh my God, the strawberry scene. And then there was people like, what strawberry scene? Like, when did this strawberry scene happen? And it's in the bloody post credits. So definitely worth watching. I absolutely freaking loved that scene. It's just like, I can't even, because he just has this like smirk on his face, and she's just like, she doesn't know where to go at that point because she's like, what did just happen? Like, what did just happen? And the whole audience is like melting goo on the floor. So it is a whole experience. So yeah, I just actually have a bunch of quotes from that car journey. They're coming back. So they came back to her hometown for a wedding. It is so Sangzi's brother, Sang Yan, it's one of his friends' wedding, and his friend is also friends with our male lead. So they're kind of like all in a group. It's their wedding. So I have a quote from that, part. And basically it says they're driving in the car. They're coming back from the wedding. And he says to her, maybe you should find a girlfriend and stop asking. Oh, no, she says to him, maybe you should find a girlfriend and stop asking me questions. Because he's asking like all of these questions. Oh, what kind of guy do you like? Oh, are you seeing somebody? All of this stuff. And who is this guy that you have a crush on? Like, why won't you tell me? Why won't you tell me? And she's just like getting like twisted in knots, because she's just trying to not tell him because it's him. So yeah, and he basically says, she says to him, oh, maybe you should find a girlfriend and stop asking me questions. And he replies, I don't have one. Maybe you should introduce me to one. And she goes, that won't do. I only know girls around my age. Around you, and he replies, around your age, I'm fine with that. And that is the conversation that truly shifts their whole relationship. Because the whole relationship shifts, because up to this point, our female lead has kind of always thought that he would never be interested in someone younger, somebody her age. And this is the first time that she kind of like ponders the fact that actually he may very well be interested, and he is. He's just said to her that, her age is fine. So I feel like this conversation is like really, I've got a hiccup, sorry. This conversation is like really, really important for them, because it really does shift. And it's the male lead like slowly starting to show her that there is interest there. And I really, really love it. Again, like episode 13, 12 and 13, but especially 13 is when we start to see like our flirty male lead come out so much. And I love the flirty male lead in this. Like, he does so well. Chen Zuyan does so well as like the flirty, smirky Li character. I was living for this. So yeah, before that car ride, the conversation, the huge shift in their relationship, the strawberry scene, there is some annotations that I had for this episode, and one of them is that I really do love like the female lead's family unit. They're everything that our male lead doesn't have, and later on you kind of see that that's one thing that he really gains a lot from her, like his relationship with her is like this family that he's kind of like not had in a really, really long time. So I love her family unit. I love the fact that they just pamper her, and like they could easily, you kind of see that her brother isn't as pampered as her, and they do address that a little bit later on in the drama, and they kind of say that, when they found out that she was gonna be that they were gonna have another baby and it was gonna be a girl, like her brother was not happy about it at all, and he acts very cold towards her, but he's just kind of like a brooch, and it's this facade for like such a squishy marshmallow on the inside. And I kind of adore him as a big brother, because he's kind of like, I'm allowed to bully, like I'm allowed to, make fun of my sister, I'm allowed, but you aren't, like nobody else is allowed to do anything, like I have her back, like if you dare touch a hair on her head, you will pay hell. But I'm allowed to do all of that. And I kind of love their bickering relationship of brother and sister. And, I feel like the parents kind of like dote on the sister more than they dote on the brother. And that's kind of like, I thought, oh, maybe that's going to be a bit edgy. But no, there's like no resentment there at all. Like, because the brother dotes on his little sister and he adores his little sister. So she is pretty spoiled, and she knows she's spoiled, but she grows, and you see her grow throughout. But again, I love the family unit, and I love her coming back from the university, and you just kind of like see her parents spoil her, and her brother like being the annoying older brother that he is. But yeah, I really do adore that. So it's also in this episode 13, that the male lead finds out that her very close family, and by that it is like some cousins, some aunts, brothers, parents, call Sang Zi, and then he proceeds to call her that constantly, like, and that's again a very nod to her saying, like to him saying, we are close, like we're a lot closer than you think. So I loved it. I really, really loved it. Love that little moment. I thought it was such a small moment, but it's like a big moment. And he does actually, when they get together and, when they start dating and everything, he does actually refer to her as Ziz sometimes. And it's really adorable. Like, that's his nickname for her as well now. And the fact that, only very close people to her, not even her friends, call her that a lot of the time. So I feel like it's a very, very personal nickname for her. And the fact that he calls her that is kind of like signaling that he is also very, very close to her. So I loved it. Episode 13 is like one of my favorite episodes out of the whole show, because again, strawberry scene, and in general, I just love the shift that we've had in the relationship, like the constant teasing of him, but in a good way, like not teasing as in a bad way. I mean like teasing, flirting, that sort of stage. This is where we enter that stage, and I kind of really enjoyed that stage throughout the whole drama. So I loved it. One of my favorite episodes. But then I just love the drama in general. So I think this is where we'll leave part 1 for the time being, and I will hand you guys over now to my guest, so you will be able to listen to some thoughts on the drama Hidden Love as well. So I will now very happily hand you over to Embracing Fiction for her own thoughts on the Chinese drama Hidden Love.
Hi, this is Embracing Fiction. Thanks Tea and Soju Podcast for this opportunity to share a quick salute to the drama. Hidden Love came to me at a time when work deadlines, client pressure were coming at me left and right. To be that quote unquote strong, independent woman of the world really felt as toiling as it sounded. So it was such a welcomed break to meet a drama that would take me out from that woman of the world mode and back to being the little girl that I was. And deep inside, I still am. What a joy it was to revel in that feeling of having a crush, to live in that little bubble of sanctuary at least for 1 to 2 hours of every day, and did not have to care about anything else. It offered me some rare kind of mental, spiritual, psychological freedom as a tired adult. It also helped that story wise, the show was meaningfully paced, heartfully acted, and cohesively crafted. I appreciated the pacing particularly because if you look at it closely, the drama progressively goes from Sangcha's little bubble to include Duanjashu's and then basically the rest of the world. It's exactly the same pacing we typically do when we explore relationships. We recognize what we want and what we feel first, and then our love interest if he feels that way also, and then the rest can follow after. And it was great to see these transitions come out so well because the cast, the director, and the overall production crew understood their assignment. They understood the differences, nuances of who each character was and their dynamics with each other across these multiple segments. Overall, the drama was quite cohesive, although there were some inconsistencies in the hard age numbers. Sometimes Tuan Jashu was 26, other times 27, etc. And I'm not sure if this is a subtitle issue or simply an oversight, but nevertheless, the story was tied artfully well, that it even had multiple moments where it went full circle. And those were really wonderful. The drama fed not only the inner little girl within me, but also the adult in me, the adult that I am, who appreciates good stories. Over the course of the past few weeks, I know I have already said a lot about the drama, and this is adding more to that. So let me just quickly wrap it up and say thank you, Hidden Love, for the little respite that you offered to the tired adult that I am, and for the warm hug that you offered to the little girl that I am inside. Thanks again, Tea and Soju Podcast, for this chance to share my final thoughts on this drama. Cheers.
And that is it. That is everything for Hidden Love Review Part 1. I will be back next week with the second part for this review. There's still so much to talk about, and I feel like there's still so many quotes for me to tell, to like the ones that I've written down. I still have a lot of notes to go through. I hope you guys join me again next week. Please do remember to check out all the links in the description box. You know, there's Discord, there is the socials, there is Patreon. Everything is linked down in the description. And I hope your corner of the world is treating you well, and I shall see you next week. Bye. This has been another episode of the Tea and Soju Asian Drama Podcast. I'm your host, Liliana, and you can come and chat to me on Instagram, Tea and Soju Pod, all one word, and on Twitter, tea_soju_pod. You can also email me at teandsojupodcast@gmail.com. If you would like to support this podcast, please consider joining Patreon for extra content. Lastly, if you enjoy this podcast, please help by rating and reviewing wherever you listen to help others find this drama corner. I'll leave everything linked in the description notes. See you next time for more Asian drama chatter.